Hi, my name is Britt Gillman and I'm the Research Project Analyst at the Deep River Public Library. Since 2022, the Deep River Library and partners have been co-leading this local history project titled Not Born from a Virgin Forest, Deep River and Area's Earliest History. The title of this project is derived from early recorded accounts of Virginia Adams Hunt, who proposed that the area that we now call Deep River had housed families for decades prior to the arrival of the town, and therefore Deep River was not born from a virgin forest. This project was started in response to requests to expand understanding of life in our area prior to 1945. I'd like to thank our partners, the Schoolhouse Museum, the Laurentian Hills Library, Professor Stephanie Adams, Alex Stevens of Deep Tech, the Deep River District Community Foundation, and to the New Horizons for Seniors grant, who generously funded this project and made our work possible. The following oral history that you're about to watch is a subjective first-person account, an individual recording of life in the early days of Deep River and area. We hope that by asking questions and capturing responses, we're able to add these oral histories to our collection of historical accounts to expand understanding. Enjoy.
Okay, so as part of the collection of local history, we're doing this as a joint effort with the Deep River Library, and Britt Gillman is here, and I have the luxury of having Earl Franceour, there was a number of core families who were from this area before the building of the hydraulic station at Swisha. And we have the luxury of having Earl, who happens to be probably the oldest original male from this part of the world. So I will now turn it over to Britt to proceed with the questions that she has.
So Earl, it's a pleasure to be joined with you today to hear about your family's story and your upbringing. I like to start at the beginning for most of our discussions. So I'm wondering, could you start off by telling us your name and where you were born?
My name is Earl Andrew Francoeur. I'm a twin, and I was born in my father's farm right here in Mackey on the 1st of March 1939.
Wonderful, wonderful. And who were your grandparents, and can you tell me about them?
My grandparents on my father's side was David Francoeur and Teresa Francoeur. She was a Gier. We'll talk about the Giers later, like her parents and that, because they were one of the pioneers of Mackey too. And then my mother's side was Stanislaus Berard and Melanice Berard. They were from Eganville.
Eganville,
yeah.
Wow. So your roots go very deep in this area then,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Actually, my mother was raised in, they call it the French settlement, just south of Eganville. They call it Perron. Perrault. Perrault was a French settlement. That's where all the French were, in Eganville.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now we have these gorgeous photos here. I think this one was your grandparents, am I correct?
That's my grandfather, and this was the parish priest here.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the 20s.
Okay, so would this have been on a church day, do you think?
Yeah.
Did they have a relationship
Probably, yeah.
as well outside of church?
The church in Mackey's was built in 1921.
Wow.
And it was, the name of it was St. Narcissus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember going to that church with
Oh
your
yeah,
family?
I made my confirmation there.
Yes?
I made my confirmation there in 1948.
Quite some time ago.
Picture taking me standing right in front of the church in 1948.
Okay, so that's your grandparents. Now what about your parents? What were their names and what can you tell me about them?
My father's name was Drexel Andrew Francoeur, and my mother's name was Martine Berard. And my father lived in Josie Lane in Deep River up till 1926 when he bought property up here in Mackey's, a 100-acre lot. He bought in Mackey's and he moved up here in 1926. His father came up with him because my grandmother on my father's side, she died. She was deceased in 1919. She was only 50 years old.
Okay.
So my grandfather was a widow. So he was living with my father was living with him when they lived in Wild, but then when they moved up here, my grandfather lived with my father. And they bought the house on lot 14, and it was, they bought the house from this William Hogan
Okay.
in 1926. And they lived there, he lived in that lot until 1935. And then he bought another 200 acres, lot 12 and 13. And that's when he moved from the Hogan place over to where the farm is now in 1935.
Wow.
Yeah.
So lots of moves.
Yeah.
Do you think there was a reason for that movement? Was it just because of the loss in the family, or just wanting to seek?
No, just my dad just, I guess they sold a farm down there, and that's why he moved up here, because my dad wanted to farm yet, so he bought the property up here so he could farm.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Better
the first
land.
100 acres he had wasn't enough, so later on he bought another 200 acres, so he had a total of 300 acres altogether.
Wow.
Yeah, so he farmed that for years.
And do you remember what sorts of things they were farming on the land?
The main thing he farmed was hay, because he needed hay for to feed the horses back then. Jobbers working in the bush. Then he sowed oats, buckwheat, and then barley. Yeah,
Wow, so good, great, wonderful.
yeah.
So
That's
what about you and your siblings? You mentioned you were a twin.
Yeah.
So what can you say about your sibling?
My brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Okay, my twin was, his name was Edgar, and he died at birth. Well, after birth, he was 6 weeks old when he got pleurisy.
Okay.
And he died, he passed away. But then my older sister was born down in Eganville in 1928, and she died after birth. She's buried down in Esmond. And then my next sister was Muriel. Then the older brother was Raymond. And then my sister Jean, and brother Donald, and brother Patrick, brother Bernard, and then me, and Mark, Loretta, and Justine.
Big family.
Yeah.
Lots of big families back then.
Oh
I've
yeah,
been hearing.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I'm sure it certainly helped on the farm.
yeah.
What is
oh,
the
yeah.
saying? Many hands make light work, right?
Yeah. If we didn't work at the farm, you got to get a look from my father when you sat at the dinner table.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So we had to do our work.
So outside of doing your daily work and maybe some farm chores, what did you and your siblings do for fun growing up?
Apart from milking cows and that, and morning and night, we played ball and hide and go seek and skating in the wintertime
Yes.
on the ice. We made a rink on the ice and skated, played hockey and that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
recreation.
Probably swimming in the summer,
Oh
I
yeah,
bet.
swimming in the summer, yeah, right in the
Yes.
Ottawa River,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any stories from being on the river growing up that come to mind? Anything that sticks out?
Not really.
No.
We didn't go too much in the boat, and we didn't have a boat.
Okay. So that makes a difference, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I'm wondering, there was a lot of circumstances, growth and change that happened in our area during your grandparents, your parents, and your lifetime. I know that Mackey and Stonecliff were villages that were most impacted by the construction of the dam.
Yeah,
And to a lesser degree, also Bissett's Creek was also impacted.
yeah.
Can you say anything about that time and those changes?
Well, to me it was hard to believe that it was going to happen. That much of an area was going to be flooded until it happened. That was in June 1949, no, 1950. The last day of school, was coming home from school, and the water was already starting to come up. They were starting to flood. I just forget how long it took for the flood the whole area, probably a couple of weeks, eh? Eventually the water was, there's two levels. The 505 was the level that the water stays at.
Okay.
And then the 505 is the flood zone. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then when, for the clearing, before they flooded, we had about it, I don't know how many men there was, but they had to clear all the area that was going to be flooded. And there was a lot of men on that job.
Do you think it was men in the community that
Oh yeah,
were just
men in the
gathering?
community, and then people come into the area to work.
Wow.
Yeah, actually there's, my mother boarded, it was 6 or 8 men at that time, back in 1946, 47, and 48.
Wow.
49, yeah. They stayed at the farm. They had a separate building, eh?
Okay.
Stayed in, yeah.
For their own little area
Yeah.
where they worked and helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was quite a project.
Wow.
So,
I bet. Do you remember how your parents were feeling about this at the time? Was there any conversations, maybe at dinner in the
oh,
home?
my dad was totally against it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah. Because they had to reroute the railroad and the highway, Trans-Canada Highway.
Right.
So they built a new highway from Ralston to Stonecliff, which passes right here, and then the railroad, it started down at, they call Ashport, a couple of miles down east of us there, and right to Stonecliff. And apparently they put, the reason my dad was against it was they put the highway and railroad right through his farm.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, and they didn't pay much for it, the property.
So there was maybe an exchange for the land?
Well, they paid him for the land, but it was
Okay.
very little. I think he got around $22 an acre.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's not much nowadays, is
No.
it?
Yeah, they took quite a bit of his land from the farm, yeah. But he was, he really objected to the railroad coming through, but he didn't win out. The railroad won out.
The railroad one. Right. So I'm also curious about school and education during this time. Do you remember what your parents did for school and education?
No, I just remember like us going to school ourselves, eh? Well, I went out to school at Old Mackey's from September 1946 to June 1950, and then they built a new school down the highway here. Hydro built the school, and then I went there from 51, 52, 53, and 54.
Okay. And Hydro built that school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Hydro also, like a lot of the people that were lost their property and that there in Mackey Station, Hydro built them new houses. Hydro paid for it, Hydro built them.
Okay.
Yeah. Like your grandparents' place, Hydro built it, eh?
Okay.
And
Wow.
so it's also the Catholic Church in Mackey's, they had to demolish it because Hydro built a new church at Stonecliff. New church and priest house in Stonecliff.
Okay.
So we all went to church in Stonecliff then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Ontario Hydro coming in and making these changes, what was it like at the time for the families?
It was hard to believe. And Well, we just had to. There's a lot of good memories in that out at Mackey Station, like the CPR station, and Duncan Moore had a service station, and then the store along Trans-Canada Highway out there, and then you had the James Dunlop farm, and then there's a grocery store and a hardware store. It was owned by Jim Carey. Actually, it was Jim Dunlop owned it before, but Jim Carey bought the store from Jim Dunlop.
Okay.
Yeah, and he ran the store, but his wife ran the store. But James Carey was a big jobber on the Quebec side, in the bush. Yeah.
Wow.
He hired a lot of men work for around Mackey's here.
So provided a lot of jobs, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that there was some properties being demolished and new ones being built.
Yeah.
So your home, this is the home you had mentioned you grew up in, correct? Now, was this home one of the ones that you had to move from during this time?
No, it was originally over there.
Okay.
Behind where I live. It was, so they weren't affected by the flood.
Okay.
No.
Great.
But you see, we lived in that house till 1942. Then my dad built a new house, a big house, in 1942, and we all moved in there.
Wow.
Yeah, a 2-story house.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
More space for everyone.
Yeah.
All those kids.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, the flood didn't affect, the only part of the area the flood affected the farm was down south of the farm. There was a bay came in and a creek, we call it Finley Creek,
Okay.
and that was all flooded.
Yes.
So, they just fell everything, and when the water came up, everything floated to the top, and then they pulled it out of the water. Yeah, out at Mackey, where Mackey Park is there now, and then the big field on Carey's Field on this side of it, they had a big drag line there, a crane, and pulling all the driftwood out of the water, and they put it in a big pile and they burnt it. Yeah. Had a hard time burning it, but they burnt it.
It would seem like such a waste,
Because it
wouldn't
was wet.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when so much
Yeah.
needs to be rebuilt and
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
It's probably some of it, I don't remember, but probably some of the timber that, it was merchantable, they probably saved it.
Okay.
Cut it up for logs and that, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good to know.
But the scrap stuff, they burnt it.
Yeah. So you had mentioned some of compensation happening from Ontario Hydro for some of the land.
Yeah.
Do you think at that time that seemed fair?
Well, it wasn't fair, but I guess back then, that price, like, that was paid out, like, well, back then you could buy, with $1, you could get $1 worth of stuff, food, eh?
Right.
It's not. Back then, $1 was $1. So they could have paid more money, but what they paid was, I guess, sufficient for, at that time.
At that time.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you feel as though after the families were displaced and had to move that this strengthened their community, or was there any negative changes as well from having to change their location?
Not really. You see, the change was that, you had to go to a different school and this and that, and and the church was moved and this and that, so you had to adjust all that. So.
Can you remember any families at that time not going on to the new spots and maybe going on a different adventure with their family elsewhere?
Moved away?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember offhand, but there was some people that moved away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't stay in Mackey.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't remember any names.
Well, that's okay.
The Kennegeezer family, they bought the grocery store out of Mackey Station. They operated a grocery store, I don't know how many years. But the father was Paul Kennegeezer, and then he had 3 sons. There's Garnet, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Do you, David?
Gordon?
Gordon, yeah.
Gordon.
And then there's 3 boys anyways. They had to move away after they flooded.
And do you know where they went off to?
Gordon went to Mattaway, and Garnet, I don't know where he went. And the other one, I don't know where either. But they had to move on account of that.
Do you feel that was a loss for the community?
I just couldn't, like, it was a shame to see the village of Mackey Station being flooded, because it was such a nice area. Like the way it was set out and this and that. Like you had the railroad station and the school and the church. You know, it was a little village, eh?
Yeah.
You know, and it was really nice.
Yeah.
It was a sad thing to see it flooded.
How old were you? How old would you have been then at that time?
When they flooded, I was only 11 years old.
11.
Yeah.
So very, you probably have a great memory of it at that time. By that age, we remember so much.
I can remember right back to 1947.
Oh,
46,
wow.
yeah.
Well, we're lucky to have you then to chat with today.
Yeah.
So do you remember before that, what did you do for your social life? So I know that you had church, but what did families do? Were there dances?
We had dances in farm homes.
Okay, right in the farm homes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you remember where some of those were? What farm?
Well, they took turns. Like all the Jennings' farms were across west of Mack Creek, so they all had farms and this and that, and on this side was Boudreau's and us. So it might be one weekend or whatever, there'd be a dance at, say, at my place. The next weekend we had Boudreau's, and the next weekend we had one of the Jennings's. That's where it just rotated, dances, eh?
I think that's a great system.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the people used to play cards, too.
Oh.
Oh, in the evenings, playing cards, yeah. Pass the time like that.
Yes. So it seemed it was very close-knit, and you had lots of ways to spend time and gather with each other.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
One benefit from the HEBC building a dam was it gave a lot of people jobs. Because before they built the dam, like my dad there, he was struggling on the farm. Like, you know, he's hard to make a living on the farm. There's not much income, you know, and this and that. So when he farmed up till then, but he had 14 horses and this and that. And then he worked in the cut logs and pulp in the bush in wintertime to survive. And so then when the dam came, built, he he bought a brand new Willys Jeep in 1947, and he got the job of driving a superintendent looking after the big power line that was transmission line that they were building, going from Ralston to Pickering or Toronto. And he drove the superintendent in the morning, and at night he'd pick him up. And so that's how he paid for the Jeep plus. So then in 1950, he bought a brand new Case tractor, and he bought a set of plows, he bought a side delivery rake, he bought a hay baler. So there was no more horses.
Wow.
Yeah, the machinery was more efficient, eh?
Yes.
You know, before we got the hay baler and that, we had to bring the hay in the barn by loose, like, and unload it off the wagon and the mows by hand.
So he was able to get all that from that job driving the superintendent.
Yeah.
Wow. So that sounds like a really positive change for the farm and the family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's, he thought right away, he went and bought a new Jeep, and he got the job of driving the superintendent.
It has to be nice for the superintendent, that's for sure.
But like I was saying, that the benefit of the dam for the people was that it put them on their feet.
Right. So some positive changes, more jobs, more opportunities for advancement.
Because before that, people in this area were struggling to make a living.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
tough.
Times
Back in the
were hard.
Depression, it was really tough. In the
Mm.
30s, you know. And so that was one good thing of the dam being built was, you know, it created a lot of jobs.
That sounds like
Yeah.
a positive for sure, yes. So I had a question about healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when babies were born in the community, I wonder who helped with this? Did this happen at home? Did you go to a
Oh yeah.
hospital?
We were all born at home.
Okay.
And there's 3 of us. Yeah, 3 of us were born in that house.
This house right
Yeah.
here. Right.
Yeah, 3 of us were born. My brother Bernard was born in 1938. I was born in 1939, and Mark, my brother, younger brother, was born in 1940.
Wow.
We were all born in that house.
Do you remember where that happened? Did you all gather near the hearth for births, or was it in a bedroom?
Well, Mrs. Jobidaw, she was a midwife. She was a midwife, and she delivered us all.
Okay, I've
Yeah,
heard.
right at the house, right at that house.
So she would come and help
Yeah.
the mother through the
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because when I was born, I don't know which one was first, but she was holding my dad, and she said, gave him to, who it was me or my brother, twin, gave it to my father, and she said, here, hold this one. She said, there's another one on the way. He says, God damn the hell, not another one.
It would have been quite a surprise back then.
That's what he said, God damn the hell, not another one.
Oh, it's a little different back then than it is now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you think you just have one, but surprise. There's a
And we never got sick that much.
okay.
Well, you know, you'd have the chicken pox coming around and the mumps, and so all went through that. But apart from that, we were all healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you remember a hospital during that time, or anyone having to go to the hospital?
The only hospital was in Deep River.
That
Was,
was the only one.
yeah,
And
it was-
were you allowed to go there?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of us were born in there.
All at home with the midwife.
Oh, my youngest sister, she was born in Pembroke.
In Pembroke Hospital.
And my second youngest, she's probably born in Pembroke too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
would they?
I remember when my mother came home on the bus from Pembroke to Mackey Station, my dad went out and picked her up. I went with him. And I sat alongside her in the back seat. Coming home, and she was holding the baby in her arms and that there.
Oh,
Yeah.
new baby
Yeah,
sister.
1946.
That would be a
In
striking
May
memory.
1946. Yeah. Yeah, I remember like that as yesterday.
Wow. And so for other issues like doctor care, was there a doctor in the community, or
No.
would you just go to the
We had
Deep
to-
River?
We had to go to Pembroke or Deep River.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did that seem at the time like quite a journey?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Until my dad bought that Jeep, he was driving a 1927 Buick car.
Oh, wow. So the Jeep was an upgrade.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like going to Pembroke was like out of the question actually. You know, you didn't go to Pembroke unless you really had to. Yeah,
Okay.
but Deep River was the place that we all went to.
For healthcare.
Yeah.
Great. So Earl, I was wondering about local politics in the area during this time. So I understand that your parents here in this photo, your dad was a reeve. Is that correct?
He was a reeve for 13 years, and he was on council for 11. Yeah, on council 11 years. So 13, 11, he was on council.
Wow.
He was a reeve from 1937 to 1950.
Wow.
13 years.
So quite a few
And
terms there.
And that's back when times were tough. A lot of people they were on welfare. And the township didn't have any money, you know, so they had to help them out some way.
Yeah.
The council had to, like my dad, you know, had to help them out, you know.
Yeah. Do you remember some of the things that council had to take on to help their community thrive?
It started in, they called it back in the 30s, anybody who worked on the road, they called it statutory labor. Because that way the township didn't have to pay out money to the workers. It was statutory labor. I don't know how that worked, but anyways, the council didn't have to pay out money to the workers. Oh yeah, statutory labor was the money that they made was put towards their taxes. They paid their taxes. That's where it worked. The statutory labor paid their taxes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So instead of making a wage, it would just be taken from their taxes in lieu.
Because the township couldn't pay it. They couldn't, like, the township couldn't afford to pay wages back then. They didn't have no money, you know.
Yes.
Because, with my dad being a good manager of things, like the way he manages farming and that, the way he managed things, he, you know, everybody got by. Yeah.
Great.
There's lots of, my dad helped a lot of people out giving them food from the farm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, meat and, you know, and stuff like that, potatoes and garden stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before, when we took our little coffee break, you and David Balla-Boudreau were talking about some of the food that you had eaten growing up and some food from the farm.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, you were talking about that story about having potatoes down in the basement. Could you share that with us again?
Yeah, well, my dad used to always grow extra potatoes for their own use. And then with the potatoes was excess potatoes, he'd bag them and go up to Derbyshire and back down to our river selling them to people for, you know, for a certain low amount of money. And
I think I remember you were talking about making salt pork as
oh
well.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
That's another thing. He made money by selling salt pork to the people up, you know, up and down the road, the highway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly he mostly sold that to people that he knew.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if he didn't, he could have got caught by the government.
Oh no.
So he was pretty cagey.
It's definitely a risk. Oh. Well, it's great to hear that through his positions, you know, in politics and also as a neighbor and friend that he helped his own.
Yeah.
Now back to politics, I was wondering, what was voting like during that time? Do you remember voting periods?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Especially when they didn't like somebody in there that they didn't want. Everybody to get out and vote. And well, my dad, when it came election time, he worked hard to get re-elected. The reason why he got beaten, he got beat out in 1951 by George Clucci. He lived in business because George went around, he made a bunch of promises to people, you know, and this and that, and so they all voted for him. So the next year, 1952, my dad went around, and Leslie Donnelly, he was Mrs. Dan Donnelly's son. My dad and him got along good, and my dad got talking to Leslie, and he got Leslie to run for Reeve. So Leslie ran for Reeve. My dad worked hard to get Leslie elected, to get George Clucci out, and he succeeded.
Wow.
Yeah. And back then too, you see, the township, they didn't have nothing to plow the roads. They didn't plow the roads in the wintertime. The township roads weren't plowed. My dad he made a V-plow out of beams and that there, and he used to pull that with the horses.
Himself?
Yeah, and plow the road, went into the farm and that there.
Wow.
But just the road going from the highway to the farm. But then when we went to school out of Mackey's, he used, they call it, like, there's a roller, a steel roller they pull with the horses. And he'd go from here out to Mackey's and back with the horse and that and pack the snow with that.
Okay.
Then when it froze, it was just like the highway.
So smooth,
Yeah.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
We used to run actually all the way to school back.
Down that snowy plowed road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mother bought us all moccasins so we could go like heck, run like hell.
So you mentioned something, I'm curious. You mentioned your mom bought you moccasins. Do you know where you would have gotten those at that time?
The ones that she bought them, I guess, out of the catalog, the Eaton's or something.
The Eaton's catalog.
They weren't made by the Indians. They weren't made by the Indians. They were very firm in that there, and, you know, light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they had a long top on them like that.
And kept your feet warm,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were warm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of the indigenous families that had lived in the area at that time, do you remember having any relationships in Mackey or Stonecliff with any of the
Oh yeah.
families in the Wiley hamlet?
Yeah, there was like in Mackey's here, we had Lemure families.
Mm-hmm.
They're indigenous, and then in Stonecliff there was the Buckshot family. In
Okay.
Stonecliff,
Yes.
yeah, and they're all natives, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with those indigenous families, what were the relationships? Did you have any trade or friendships or social events that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can remember?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they used to mingle in with us.
Good.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes you get drinking too much in the Stonecliff Hotel and get fighting.
I've heard some stories.
The Buckshot family, there were three brothers, eh?
Okay.
They'd get in the hotel drinking and get arguing in the hotel. They'd go outside and fight with one another for a while. Then they'd come back in and drink some more beer. Yeah.
Great.
Frankie and Michael, they were the two who used to fight. Yeah, that was the lifestyle back then. Oh yeah, see, all the names are mentioned in that sheet of paper I gave you, David.
Yeah.
If you want to bring it to me, I'll read them out.
So these are the families that live back in the hardwoods?
Yeah, see,
Okay.
I'll start from the beginning with this James Jennings Sr. He originated from Sheenborough, Quebec. He came up here to Mackey's in 1882. And back then, 1882, the government at that time would give land to people to work the land. They had to work the land.
Okay.
They'd give them the government would give them the land. So James Jennings, he moved from Sheenborough up to, they call it the Hardwoods, back in Mackey Creek Road. It was about, well, from here it'd be about 5 miles. And he had 8 sons.
Wow.
And all the sons, when they grew up, they all had farms all along the west side of Mackey Creek, right from Mackey Station right out back to, not back as far as the Hardwood, but would be about 3 or 4 miles from the highway. But there was James Jennings Sr. After they moved from the Hardwood out to Mackey's back here, and his son James built a house in that there. So his son James had that farm. I forget how many acres he had, but then another son was Jack, was next to him. He had a farm. He farmed, and then the next one to him was William Jennings. He had a farm, and then the next one was Daniel Jennings.
Okay.
And he had a farm also, and then Joe Jennings, he had a farm too in Mackey's.
So were these all farms part of the ones the government had provided?
Yep.
Wow.
All along the west side of Mackey Creek.
Okay.
Yeah, right from back in 5 miles or back there, right out to Mackey Station. Yeah.
And can you let me know what was the trade-off for the government? Would they be making anything off of what they farmed,
No.
or was it just
No,
a provision?
The stipulation was that the government gave them the property, but they had to work the land. If they didn't work the land, the government would step in and take it back.
Okay.
So that was the stipulation, that they had to work the land. So they all farmed the land.
Wow.
Right from all them years. Yeah.
Wow. So this says Dunlop Homestead. Would
Yeah.
this have been the farm then, or was this after?
No, that James Dunlop, he bought this property from the jobbers that worked up in the bush. They owned this. I guess eventually they owned this land, but apparently James Dunlop bought the property at Mackey's from them jobbers, some of the jobbers in the bush.
Okay.
They sold him because he used to supply the jobbers with the hay for the horses and oats and that.
Are
So,
you saying jobbers?
Yeah.
Can I ask what that means?
Lumberman.
lumberman.
Yeah, lumberman.
You would
yeah.
call them
lumberman,
jobbers.
Yeah, lumberman, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes
yeah,
sense. Was
yeah,
it because that was their job? So you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The
Interesting.
lumberman, they settled, they worked in the bush in the Quebec side and that there, and he used to provide hay and oats for the lumberman,
Okay.
So apparently when eventually James Dunlop, he sold all his property to James Carey at Mackey Station.
Okay.
And that included the store and all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And he owned it for a number of years.
And so did things change after it turned hands at the store there?
I can't remember. I can't remember if he worked a farm or not, but he was a jobber in the bush too, you see, a lumberman. So I don't know if he got his supplies from the property at Mackey's or he got it someplace else. But I know he was a big jobber on the Quebec side.
Wow.
Yeah, because he had 3 sons, They all worked for him in the bush. Yeah.
So with all this mention of farms and eggs and butter and milk and meat, I can't help but think of how now in this area, going all the way to Chalk River and up in this direction, that there's not as many farms anymore.
Oh, the farming up here is finished.
Right.
Yeah.
So why do you think, if you can look back, can you think of why that might be?
Well, for example, my father's farm, he farmed it right up in 1965 to 1927. They got married in 27 in Mackey's, October 1927, but he farmed his farm up till 1965.
Wow. Okay.
Then he sold it to my second oldest brother, Donnie, and Donnie farmed until 1972. So he had an accident that he was killed in a snowmobile accident. So then my sister-in-law had the farm then, and she remarried to the OPP. But then he didn't know nothing about farming. He tried to, but he didn't make of it. And so eventually the farm it wasn't going up too bad up till 1956 when he sold the farm to Clucci's from Pembroke.
Okay.
Clucci and Sons in Pembroke. And like they never worked the farm. They just bought the property, and they never worked the farm. So that's when all the fields grew up in bush.
Okay.
Yeah. And all the farms, like the Jennings farms and the West Side Street, they're all growing up in bush too.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they quit farming. People quit farming.
Yeah, there's not as many farmers.
Because it wasn't, back when my dad farmed this now, it was economical, but it got to the point, like a small farm, it wasn't economical. Like to make money on. You couldn't make money on a small farm. So all the farms, like down by Pembroke and that there, they all bought more acreage for they could, you know, sow more grain and hay and that there, you know, to increase their income.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Now, in around 1945 to 1950, when the town of Deep River, just down the road,
Yeah.
was coming and being built,
Yeah.
can you remember any changes occurring then within your community because of this area?
Well, one thing, my mother, they used to go and buy the grocery stores in Deep River then,
Yes.
you know, and other items and that there. I went to Mackenzie School in 1955 and 56.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a fresh, new school, new people
Yeah,
living here.
yeah.
What was that like?
They had
your
about
first
800
year?
pupils there when I went there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like being in school with all of these new people?
Well, we call them the Deep Riverites there, didn't it? And they kind of looked down on us because we were farmers from Mackey's.
Oh, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
so? Okay. Okay.
They didn't associate too much with us.
No, there wasn't a lot of mingling with the children that lived in Deep River
No,
proper?
no.
Okay.
The only time we mingled was when we went to school. Apart from that, we used to go to the show and once a week or something in Strand Theatre in Deep River,
Yes.
you know, but apart from that, we didn't associate with them too much,
Okay.
no.
So your community remained kind of insular and separate still from
Yeah.
the town?
Yeah.
Okay. Was it nice to be able to go shopping there?
Oh, yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The A&P store. My parents used to shop at the A&P store all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, they never shopped at the other ones. Yeah.
So there's a few photos here that I wondered if you could tell me about. So this one here says the original Mackey and CPR rail.
Yeah.
So it looks like a wonderful wide vista of the village here and the houses.
That was taken away back, is the date on there?
Let's see. I don't think I see it.
And yeah, see that picture be taken way back in about sometime after 1850.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because see, there's the
can
Ottawa
see.
River,
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
but they never built the Trans-Canada Highway. They started building in 1932, and came through Mackey Station to Stonecliff, right up
Okay.
through the business and that there. It was we started in 1932. It was actually about 5 or 6 years building it and this and that. Because I remember the picture that I seen there was taken in 1933. They had the workers. They had a bunch of tents set up in Mackey Station in the field there for the workers.
Wow.
They were working on the highway.
Just so they
Yeah.
could stay sheltered
Yeah.
during that time.
Yeah,
So I can see maybe there's some big farms and buildings here and maybe some little roads, just dirt
Yeah.
roads to travel between, but that was all there was
yeah.
at that time, right?
Another thing I should mention after, it wasn't there then, but this American from the States, he came up here. He knew this Gus Mayer, but he built a nice big barn right in the village of Max, between the railroad station and the river, or the highway.
Oh, okay.
It was a big barn with hip roof and everything out there. And he kept the animals there because in the bottom of the barn there was all stalls, was all made in the bottom part of the barn for the cattle and that.
Yes.
But
Wow.
they used to have barn dances in that barn.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
That sounds
I remember
great.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds
They had
fun.
double doors on the side of the barn like that there. They used to open up them doors and that there for to let the air through and that, and everybody dancing and everything.
Oh, that
a
sounds
good
like a
time.
lot of fun.
H.N. Haber.
Haber. Okay.
He was from New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been an exciting time to have him come into the community and have this barn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, he had lots of money.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So there's a photo here I see of the CP rail.
Yeah. That was taken back in about, see, you noticed that all the land is cleared?
Yes, I can see
Trees
that.
and everything all cut. So that was taken before 1949 or whatever.
Right.
And that's the train, I don't know which direction he's going. Looks like it was heading east.
Okay.
But they had, this is, Mackey Creek used to run all the way from back here out to Mackey Station. The Mackey Creek runner, they run underneath the trestle, see?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
So was this before the flooding?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
see things are.
Because just before the flooding, because you had all the trees and everything all cut, see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's the train, and all the boxcars and that there.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
And
probably quite loud going by.
yeah. And another thing, the railroad, the CPR came through there in 1880.
1880.
1880, the railroad came through.
Wow.
Yeah, CPR. And the first station that they built, it burnt in 1901. So they built a new station after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this here was your home that you grew up in.
Yeah.
And before we were chatting about the way that this home was built
Yeah.
and how you don't see houses built this way anymore.
No.
So can you tell me a little bit about the materials for this home?
Well, for the main structure was square timber logs.
Okay.
And then they used lumber for like the roof and the gable ends, and that was built with lumber, eh? But the main part of the building was built, everybody's home was built out of square timber logs
Okay.
in this area back at that time. Like the Dunlop's house and that there, it was all logs and that there.
Right.
Yeah,
Dunlop House.
they did.
Oh,
And then
here
it
it is.
Yeah, yeah. See, it all was, yeah. It was all square timber.
Wow.
But that house was down, I believe it was down not too far from the station, CPR station, that house was.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes. I love how in this photo their dress seems so much different than it is now.
oh yeah,
We've got hats and jackets and ties and layers.
oh yeah. Yeah,
And clothing has changed so much over time, hasn't
yeah,
it?
yes, yeah. There was nice old homes back then.
Yes. Yes, the new homes aren't built the same way anymore, are
No,
they?
no, no.
And not with the same material.
No.
No.
Well, there is why, like these log homes, they were hard to heat, eh?
I'd imagine.
Yeah, you know, and that's why everybody had a wood stove back then, so
Right.
it didn't matter. Most homes had two stoves,
Okay.
a cook stove and a box stove, to heat them.
That makes sense.
Like that house right there had a cook stove and a box stove to heat it.
Wow. So I'm sure it was quite cozy in the wintertime.
Oh yeah. Oh, my dad used to keep the fire going with. But when he moved into the other house, the big house, we had a cook stove and a box stove in the living room, but he would never leave a fire going at night.
No.
No. But when he went to bed, the fires went out because he was scared of fire. So he'd get up, he'd be 5 o'clock in the morning, he'd be up making a fire. But I remember this guy sleeping upstairs. It was in the wintertime, it was so goddamn cold. We had to pull the blankets right over our head to keep warm until he got the fire going.
Oh, I'm sure there were some cold nights.
Oh yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, he'd never leave a fire going at night. He was scared of fire getting burnt out, eh?
Right.
So
So he'd wait quite early to get it started for the day.
5 o'clock in the morning, he'd be up
Wow.
making a fire, sometimes earlier than that.
What
Yeah.
time would you have gone to bed together as a family? Do you do it when the sun goes down?
Yeah, we were usually all in bed by 10 o'clock anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get up at 5, I'm sure you need to get some
Yeah,
good sleep
yeah.
the night before.
Yeah, he'd probably be in bed before that, but
Yeah.
because back then too, there was no hydro.
Right.
We had
Yeah.
coal oil lamps.
No electricity.
Used to go to bed early because save on the fuel. It was 1952 when he got the big house wired.
Wow.
And then the hydro put the power line in from the highway. It was 1952. That's when we first got the hydro in the big house. Yeah, everybody then was eventually getting changing to hydro, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but before that was all coal oil lamps.
Do you remember the first time you had seen a light turn on in that time? What did you think?
Why? It was easier on the eyes anyway.
Yeah?
Oh, I thought that was great. You could see. You had to do your homework not there, you could see what you're doing.
Yes, instead of by candlelight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because the lamps there, they weren't very bright, eh? It wasn't very bright light,
Right.
So
Earl, do you remember of any people who unfortunately lost their homes from fires from Cook's?
we had Jack Jennings' house burnt. That was in the 50s. It burnt, and who else now?
The point being, it did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they used some of them, like the old lads, they used to pile the wood too close to the stove, and the wood would catch on fire. Eh?
And that's how it would start.
Yeah.
So that risk was a real
Yeah.
concern.
Because
Losing
I
your
remember
home.
being back when I was a young lad, I used to chum with Ellis Jennings. He lived back there with his grandparents and that there, and his father lived there. But anyways, I remember we used to go back there to play cards with his grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She used to like playing cards, and used to play cards, but I remember seeing the wood pile right close to the stove. And eventually that's what happened, the friggin' wood caught on fire and burnt the house.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Do you
Well,
remember what would happen during that time if somebody had lost their home? Would they have been housed with another family until they could rebuild?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he said they had all brothers and that there on that side, so they stayed and bunk up with them
Oh,
until
right.
he rebuilt the house.
Yes.
Because with Jack Jennings' son, he was living there, and he built a new house out of lumber.
Okay.
And eventually that house burnt too.
Oh no.
And a young lad got burnt in it. It was Francis Jennings' brother's son. Wyman Jennings' son, he was staying overnight with Alice, that was his cousin, staying overnight when the house caught on fire, and Alice jumped out through the top window, but Ray, he never woke up, and they found him all curled up in bed, burnt.
That's hard.
But Alice, when he jumped out the window, he cut his leg on the glass,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a bad cut in his leg there, he put in bled to death. Yeah. And that would happen. That happened 1950, 52, I guess it was, or 53. Yeah. But I used to go and I used to chum with Alice,
Yes.
Play with cards with his grandmother. Alice, he was quite the guy. To get his grandmother going, he'd renege.
What does this mean?
She'd notice that she'd throw all the cards on the table.
Oh. Just poking fun.
Yeah. And then I used to chum with Merwin Jennings. That was Dan Jennings' grandson.
Okay.
Dan Jennings' son's son. Anyways, I used to go and work out in the farm for his grandfather and that there, and we used to play cards there too at night, eh?
Okay.
Oh yeah, play euchre. Everybody liked playing cards back then. Passed the time.
It passed the time, kept you sharp too,
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
Keeps your mind active and
If you're in age, you always got caught. I was at the farm till 1960. I got married in 1960, November, and 1961, I went up to Sudbury and I got hired on with Inco. And I worked in the mine there for 5 years, and then I moved from there down to Niagara Falls area, Welland, and I worked down there from 1965 to 1973 when I moved back here. 1973, and I've been here ever since.
And were you bringing a family back at that time?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And what
I
was
worked in construction there. Like down after I left the mine, I went working for construction, and I worked on a big project there, St. Lawrence Seaway. They did a 8-mile diversion from Port Robinson, Port Colborne. They dug an entirely new canal.
Oh wow.
And it was all earth-moving equipment was used, like scrapers and ukes and all that stuff. So that's where I worked till I came back up to Mackey. Yeah. Yeah.
And after those jobs, bringing your family back to Mackey area, what was that like for your family?
Oh, they liked it.
Yeah, they were happy to be
Yeah.
here?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Had they
Come
ever
around with your
visited?
cousins then.
Oh.
With Reggie.
So it was their first time seeing where you had grown up,
Yeah.
right? Wow. And what did you do at that point when you first came back? Was there anything you did for work then?
Well, I mainly drove transport,
Okay.
logging trucks.
Wow.
Yeah, logging. I worked construction too up here too, on and off, but mainly I worked on driving a logging truck, hauling logs.
So lots of traveling.
I actually worked for Clutch's, Heck Clutch and Sons in Duverre for 10 years,
Okay.
running the bulldozer, making roads. Yeah. He brought me a brand new D6 bulldozer, 1999. He bought me a brand new D6 bulldozer.
Wow, that sounds like a
That
good
was something.
memory.
Yeah.
Coming back, what changes do you see happening now in our townships?
Mm.
You know, with our communities and the people who are moving in and that.
Oh, it's a different altogether to me. Like, and most of the people now that live here, I don't know them. They're all strangers to me. Like, I could count them on one hand, the ones that I know. Like, it's all strangers. Yeah.
Do you feel that the people are not as close-knit and familiar
No,
as they
that's
used
right.
to be?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not. Everybody's doing everybody is doing their own thing. You know.
Yeah.
They don't associate with neighbors like they used to back in the 50s and that there in the 60s. It's not the same.
Right.
No. Yeah.
So if you're looking back from your grandparents, your parents, your childhood to now, there's been so much change and progression over this length of time.
Yeah.
So if there was one piece of advice that you would give as we go into the future and create future generations, what would that be?
It's the same old thing, like, you know, if you want to survive and be a success, you got to work hard. That's one thing. You got to have a good work ethic. And the problem nowadays, the younger generation, they haven't got a good work ethic. Some of them have, but a lot of them don't, Like, they don't work like we used to when we were when you were young, you know. And then the thing is too, like the younger generation, everything's different. Like when back in our time, we didn't have computers and all this stuff. But now the younger generation, they have all these computers and this and that. So, you know, it's different. And it's not. Back in our time, it was mostly manual labor working. But now this generation, like, there's no more manual labor really. You know, it's all texting and computer and all this stuff, you know.
Earl, one of the impressions I got from my father, who grew up the same time as Earl, a little bit older, was that the place was really depressed. There was not a lot of money, as Earl has said. There
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of jobs. So if you didn't work hard,
Yeah.
you didn't survive.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm wondering, maybe today in our townships, people fortunately have more money and they can have more stuff, so
Yeah.
there's not so much the need to depend on your neighbor, to depend on working hard in
Yeah.
order to survive or to
Yeah.
be as well off.
Yeah. Well, the thing, it's too easy nowadays, like, you know. You don't, like back when we were, my generation, that you, if you didn't working hard, that you didn't survive. So now, you know, the people are more well off in this, and there's more money in the families and this and that, so they really don't have to work hard like we used to, you know.
Right.
But the big thing is that I know my son is a carpenter contractor, and he can't get any young people to work for him.
Difficult.
He said if he does get somebody, they just stay for a while and they're gone, or they don't show up for work and this and that. You know, that's the way it is with it. You know, they haven't got the work ethic like back in my generation,
There was
which
a
is
lot
sad.
of, yeah, it sounded as though from your stories people had a lot of grit
Yeah.
and they had become accustomed to living through hardship. So
Yes.
a very strong work ethic
Yeah.
came from that.
Yeah.
And especially taking care of others around you as
Yeah.
well to help build up your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like now, like my grandson there, he got on at ACL, so he's all right. He's, you know, but the part like before he got on at ACL, like he didn't have. He worked at Tim Hortons. That's where he worked before he got on Tim Hortons. Got on at ACL, but he did his job there at Tim Hortons. He got along good there and that. So they gave him a good recommendation for ACL. Yeah.
That's great.
But the young generation, if they get on at Ontario Hydro or ACL or CFB Petawawa, they got it made. You know,
Yeah, three
Yeah.
major industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the engine of this area is ACL Chalk River and CFB Petawawa and Ontario Hydro. Yeah, there's one time after they built the dam down here, there's quite a few people worked there after they built the dam. But then everything they computerized everything, and then there's a lot of men got laid off or moved someplace else. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think maybe at the time they were looking for skills that weren't exactly of the people who lived in the area.
Yeah.
So we saw families moving in, but locals probably felt a little bit
Yeah.
like they weren't skilled enough for those positions.
That's right.
Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, well, most of the ones that got on hydro as operators, they weren't from here. They were from this area.
Right.
So when they computerized everything at the dam, there's quite a few men. Well, Ontario Hydro didn't lay them off because they just moved them around. You know.
Okay.
And we had in Rolfton too, Ontario Hydro. There's a big. They call it the Hydro Colony.
Oh.
It was if you went to Rolfton, it was on the left-hand side of the highway. But anyways, the reason why they had it called a colony was they had the houses all like it went around like this there, around, back around.
Okay.
Now it was all homes on both sides of the street. They built there, and they call it all the Hydro employees that's where they lived.
In the colony.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
But you know, eventually, when everybody moved in, this net Hydro told that they moved They got a contract to move a lot of the houses away, but a lot of them got tore down.
Oh.
But there's nothing there now at all. It's called,
Wow.
it's all vacant. Yeah. But often when the dam was being built, it was a booming place.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Lots of activity and
Yeah.
excitement as well.
They had a good skating rink down there and everything, and played ball, a ball field. So go to play ball and play hockey and that there, you know, for recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Earl, if you have any last memories or stories to share, I would love to hear them. Or if you maybe have a message as well for the next generation of our area.
Well, I'd say that the next generation take a page out of their grandparents' book,
Mm-hmm.
and add the way they had to work for to survive.
Mm.
You know, their grandparents and their parents. You know, take a page out of their book and remember how they survived, had to survive. You know.
Mm-hmm. Lots to learn from our ancestors, isn't
Yeah.
there?
Well, the thing today is a different society altogether. That's the trouble. You know, government to blame for a lot of things, but you know, it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It's, but can't change that.
So any last memories to share? Anything that stands out?
I didn't talk about the Pembroke and Mattawa Highway.
Mm.
It was built back in it was from Pembroke to Mattawa. It was completed in Mattawa in 1875.
Mm.
Yeah. Pembroke, that was the road that went through here before they built the Trans-Canada Highway.
Wow.
And it was just like a wagon trail. You got to a certain place you could meet with a car. Yeah.
There wasn't the 2 lanes?
No.
No yellow line?
No. Another thing I should mention, I forgot to mention, was Head Clarence Township was established in 1861.
1861.
Yeah, that's when the first council was established in 1861.
Wow.
Head Clarence.
That's quite a while ago.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
old community with deep roots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Renfrew County went right up west of Duryea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you see that James Dunlop, he was Reeve for a long time.
Yes.
And then there's James Donnelly, he was Reeve. And all them people, James Dunlop, then James Jennings, senior, or not senior, but junior, he was Reeve for 12 or 13 years too or more. Because he was Reeve before my dad got involved with the council.
Okay.
My dad first went on council in 1932.
Wow.
He was only young. Yeah,
That is young.
yeah, and then he
Yeah.
got in Reeves in 1936
Wow.
and 1950. But all them pioneers now, they got involved in the township politics, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know. You're on, a lot of them was on council, but there always used to be Reeve and 4 councillors.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where they operated.
So it sounds like people really did get involved with their communities back then
Yeah.
to make it a better place for all.
And my dad, I remember when Dad was a Reeve and on council out there, like with the 4 councillors, Dad or anybody on council, they got along so good.
Mm-hmm.
There was no friggin' fighting or chewing a rag or nothing.
Oh, that's good
You
to
know,
hear.
Yeah. I remember Dad, he'd be working in the field plowing, and the councillor would be going by like that. They'd stop, and they'd come along the fence, and the both of them would be talking to each other over the fence. Yeah, yeah.
It's nice they could get along.
Yeah.
That's not always the case.
That's
I'm
how they.
sure.
That's how
No.
they accomplish things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
working
everybody got
together.
along.
Great. Would you say this community really thrived because of people working together? Would
Oh,
that
yes,
have been a,
yes,
a
yes.
pillar of its success?
Oh yeah, back then, like neighbors helped neighbors.
Yeah.
I remember when my dad's barn was built over in the field here when he lived in the Hogan place there. All Jenningses, they all came and helped build a barn.
Wow.
And your grandfather and that and everything, you all got together to build a barn. Up she went, all by hand.
Teamwork.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
and that barn's still standing.
Well, that's why
Yeah,
you all work together.
Yeah.
It made it.
yeah, yeah. That's the way it was back then. Everybody helped. The neighbors helped neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
with their work, what had to be done. Yeah, when when it came time to butchering and this and that, everybody came to help you.
Oh, wow. It makes it fun as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
When you can work alongside others
yeah,
and enjoy it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, I should tell this story. When my dad was reeved, there's a bunch of people up in Dervier. They're on welfare, and that was back in early 50s, I think it was, or late 40s, I guess it was. Anyways, my dad was reeved then, yeah, he was reeved, it was before 1950. And a bunch of them came down to the house, the farm, and they threatened my dad, eh?
Threatening?
They threatened him, yeah. So they're at the door. They threatened him that they're going to kill him or whatever there. So he always kept his rifle hanging over the door in the kitchen. 2 rifles he had hanging over there. They don't know that, eh? So they were giving him a hard time, so he just reached up and grabbed the rifle and he told him, he says, "Get out of here right now." He says, "Or I'll shoot at you." They took off.
I bet.
That's where it was.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, because my dad couldn't help it. The township didn't have any money, give welfare, so they threatened to injure him.
And no other police. This is something
No.
to keep in mind too. No
police,
police
no,
force,
no.
no OPP, nothing.
That's
at
why the
that
farmers
time.
all kept their guns handy.
I
Well,
bet.
for bears and that too, like it. And used to have bears come to the farm trying to grab a pig out of the pen there and kill the pig and this and that. So, when the bears are not there, you had to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then hunting season was another story. My dad really looked forward to hunting season.
Did
he
he?
loved to hunt deer, yeah. Yeah.
Did he have success most of the time hunting?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
he was a crack shot. He didn't miss.
Wow.
One shot.
Wow.
Whenever we heard one shot, we knew who was shooting.
It was Dad. Oh.
He'd say to us, "And one damn young lad said you couldn't hit the barn door with a handful of peas."
Hunting season was also income for the area too, because
Yeah.
people would come from other areas and they would board.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
to stay and hunt.
Yeah, we had a lot of people
Okay.
come up from Cornwall who used to come up here to hunt.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a source of income
Right.
Yeah.
for a lot of families here.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And,
We-
and the hunters were not that fussy, as long as there was a place to sleep and they
Yeah,
got
yeah.
something to eat. they were
Yeah.
good.
Good.
We had the game warden come into the house one time. It was in the summer kitchen. My mother had a roast of venison on the stove. And he smelled the venison cooking anyway, but he didn't say much. He knew what it was, but away he went. Never said nothing. Because he knew freaking well, it was for to survive, for food for us.
Was there anybody in the area who would act as a guide to any of the hunters coming into our area?
Yes, some places they had guides,
Okay.
especially in the Quebec side.
On the Quebec
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone who worked as a guide?
Well, some of them Indian people from Dervier, like Willie Buckshot, he was a guide.
We had heard that some of the Indigenous families had
Yeah,
worked as
yeah,
guides. So
yeah.
I was curious if there were any stories of
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My dad used to live for hunting season.
Yes.
he'd get up early in the morning, milk all the cows, and for to go and hunt.
Well, there's lots of space, and then it would mean that you had meat for the winter, right?
That's right. Yeah. Apart from pork, you just get tired of eating pork.
I guess you would. You have to mix it up a little.
Yeah.
Keep things interesting.
Yeah.
Great.
See this place here, this used to belong to David's. You'd be your great grandfather, eh? Jamie Donnelly. Or your grandmother's.
It was my grandmother, yeah, Grace,
Yeah.
Grandma Grace, yes.
Yes.
James Donnelly, he owned all this property here, this field.
Yeah.
And the next one over was Dan Donnelly. Owned all that farm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Wow.
Well, Dan Donnelly's father was William Donnelly. There was William Donnelly, then Dan Donnelly. Then Dan Donnelly had 4 or 5 sons. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, big families.
Yeah, and Dan Donnelly, he died a young man. He was only 40 years old when he died, 1940. Yeah, and his wife was, she was left to raise all them kids.
Oh, dear.
There's Harold, Tom. She had about 4, then a couple, 2 daughters, and I think she had 4 or 5 boys.
Oh, wow.
There were 6 kids she had to raise on her own, the widow.
That's a lot of work.
Well, her sons helped her with the farm, but it's lucky she had 6 boys or 5 boys.
Yes. To help
Yeah,
with all the hard labor.
yeah. There's Harold and Tom and Leslie and Elmer. Yeah, I think that's right.
Earl, I want to thank you for telling us so many wonderful stories.
You're
You have
welcome.
such a great memory, and your details are so crisp. It really brought this area alive for
Yeah.
me listening to you.
Yeah,
So thank you so much.
oh, you're welcome.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah.